Hashem's help, we're going to do Igeres HaKedesh Yud Beis. And we start with the Shir of Hey Elul, which is Friday's Shir. Now, as I have already mentioned to you on a previous occasion, that every Igeres HaKedesh is self-contained. Each one is Inyan Bifnei Atzmei, which is a certain, in other words, you could learn each one separate. Many of them have a theme connected to tzedakah, because the Alter Rebbe was very, very into tzedakah, as is the case with the next two Igeres HaKedesh. And Yudal is also in Yud tzedakah. The first 14 letters of Tanya, besides for Aleph and Beis and Yud Aleph, are all on Yonam of tzedakah. But every letter has a different nekudah. The Alter Rebbe is giving a different message of tzedakah. And it's interesting that Yud Beis and Yud Gimel have a common theme. The theme of Yud Beis and Yud Gimel is the theme of Shalom. But Shalom has three bechinas, as Echabdas. The lowest bechina of Shalom is Shalom between Teva and Ra, between good and evil. The second bechina of Shalom is Shalom between Chesed and Gevura, as it is in Malachim. Chesed and Gevura are not good and evil. Chesed and Gevura are good and good, they're just different. But Malachim are polar. Malachim are Kitzoniyim. In other words, Michal is only Chesed, and Gevil is only Gevura, and so forth. And the third Shalom is Shalom of Neshamas Yisrael. Yet each Neshama has everything in him already. But some have more Gevura, or Gevura is Begilin, Chesed is Behelim, and vice versa. So the next two Igeres HaKedesh have a common theme. Yud Beis talks about the first two Madreges, Shalom between Teva and Ra, and Shalom between Chesed and Gevura, by Malachim, where each one is one Ktsei, one Nekudah, one Kav. And Igeres HaKedesh Yud Gimel happens to be Gematria Echad, is Shalom between the Neshamas Yisrael, where he makes the point that each Yid by himself already has a Inyan for Shalom. And of course the point of the Igeres HaKedesh is that you should give tzedakah to create Shalom. But that because there's two Madreges in tzedakah. One Madrega tzedakah creates Shalom only between Chesed and Gevura. When a person gives tzedakah with a Mesiras Nefesh, you can even create Shalom between Teva and Ra. So let's begin. Yud Beis. The Pasuk says, V'hoya Maaseh HaTzedakah Shalom. And it will be, the act of tzedakah will affect peace. V'avedas HaTzedakah, and the labor of tzedakah will affect hashket, that means quiescence, quietness. V'avetach, and trust and certainty, security, adelim, forever. So the Pasuk says there's two madreges in tzedakah. One is called Maaseh tzedakah, and it's called Avedas tzedakah. It says the Alter Rebbe lahav and a hefresh. We must understand the distinction. Shebei Maaseh la'aveda. What's the difference between what's called the Maaseh tzedakah, the act of tzedakah, and the Avedas tzedakah? And I want you to know that Api Nigle, the word Maaseh already connotes kfiyah. The Gemara says ma'asin al tzedakah. Maaseh already means to force. So if Maaseh means to force, what could Aveda mean above and beyond it? And then the difference between Shalom, lahashket v'vetach chuli, between peace and serenity and quiescence and security and so forth. So Alter Rebbe gives Akdama. Apima Hashem, as the Gemara says, Al Pasuk, and the Pasuk Eiseh Shalom b'Meneva, that Hashem makes peace amongst His exalted ones. Meneva means those who live in the heavens. This goes by Pashas and the Malachim. And the Gemara explains, Ki Michal Sar Shal Mayim. Michal is the officer, the Malach of water, of Chesed. V'Gavriel Sar Shal Eish, and Gavriel is the minister of fire, which is Gevuras. Ve'ein Mechaben Zeh, they don't extinguish one another. Right? Even though each one is only one thing, Malachim are different than the Neshamas. The Neshamas are balanced. And Malachim are polar. So Michal is only Chesed. And Gavriel is only Gevura, and so forth. Climate this means, Michal Sar Shal Chesed and Nikra B'Shem Mayim. Michal, who's the minister of kindness, which is called water. Just as water, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya Perek Daled, Hayedim Bakim Gveilam Macham Namach, which come from a high place to a low place, the same is true. Chesed is the idea of Mayim. Because V'hu, it represents Bechinas Hashpa, V'espashtos Hachayas, a flow and an expansion of life. In other words, a generosity and a giving. Me'elam, from the higher worlds and to the lower worlds. So Mayim is the same idea as Chesed, because it's about giving, as opposed to Bechinas Eish, as opposed to fire, Shetiva La Leislama, that its nature is to ascend upwards, to go away from this world. He Bechinas HaGevura V'Histalkus, this idea of strength and ascent, departure. of hashpa'as hachayim mimata l'mala. The flow of life, instead of coming down, should ascend upwards. Shalei lashpia, not to give, but tzimtzum atzim, but only very, very cheaply, very, very frugally, very with great contraction, very limitation. Atzim v'rav, intense and great tzimtzum. And as a result, Mechol and Gavriel, which is fire and water, or Gevura and Chesed, they're midas, they're measures, they're characteristics that are opposite, that are distinct and opposite from one another. I should say, opposite and opposing one another. In other words, Mechol has no Gevura at all, and Gavriel has no Chesed at all. Okay? That's when they're midas alone. So when you have Mechol alone and Gevura alone, it's fire and water. They have no relationship. And then there's a concept of Shalom. The Pasuk is Eis Shalom b'nei, the Eibishter makes peace between them.